everyone. Welcome. You know, you need two jacks or better to start Tech Strong Gang today, but we've got them. You're watching Tech Strong Gang. Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. It's the Monday before Christmas. What are we doing here? Well, we still got today and tomorrow. We won't be doing a show Wednesday, and then we won't have live shows probably till after the first of the year after that. But nevertheless, savor these last couple shows of 2025, because 2025 is going to go down as really a boundary layer year. And if you check out my Shimmy Says from last Friday where I talked about this. I do believe it's the first year of the 21st century. I know you think my math's crazy, but it's true. Let me introduce you to our gang today. We got some hard guys. I mentioned a pair of jacks and better to go over stuff. Got our friends Jack Poller and Jack Gold, as well as Mike Vizard and myself, and we've got some interesting stuff to go over today. Gentlemen, welcome as we get ready here for Christmas and New Year's and the holiday break. The news doesn't stop. As I said earlier, 2025 is going to go down in the record books as an interesting year, to say the least. Mike, what do we got for today?
Well, at a time when everybody's trying to figure out how to gain AI skills, there's a lot going on. Coursera has agreed to acquire Udemy for $2.5 billion. IBM is partnering up again with Pearson to kind of revamp their entire online learning catalog using AI agents. Sorry about that. And we also have some senators probing some other stuff. We'll get into that later. But the issue seems to be the following. It's clear that we need to reskill a huge part of the workforce, but it's not clear to me that organizations are willing to invest in that just yet. At the same time, we don't have time to go sit in formal programs anymore for I'm going to sit around for 3 weeks to learn something. So we're trying to use AI to deliver the right content at the right time. So the AI agent's going to observe what you're doing and notice that you might be struggling, and then pop up with some things that say, hey, you might be interested in learning this now because it seems like you're trying to figure out how to do this particular thing. Now, in some quarters that might be creepy and others might say it's useful, but the whole way we train people seems to be in need of a revamping. Jack, what's your take on what's going on here? I sometimes feel like organizations are kind of like the Steinbrenners. All they want to do is hire the best and they don't want to invest in training. But do we need a farm team for AI?
Yeah, we do. We certainly need more than we've got. Various statistics out there showing it's 80%, 90% of AI projects are failing at large enterprises to achieve the TCO or ROI goals that they've set. There are a number of reasons for that. Some of it is because they're not being able to pull in the corporate data into the AI models to make it work properly. And the other issue, of course, is that they're not able to redirect or redo their workflows to make best use of AI. But a lot of it also has to do with the fact that we're not training people to use AI effectively. When Office first came out as an example, we just kind of threw it at people and they said, here's Word, here's Excel, here's PowerPoint, here's all these great tools. Go to town, go use them. But it took several years before people really got good at using those tools. If we don't train people with new methods of work, with new methodologies, with new application solutions, we shouldn't expect them to be good at what they're doing and using those things. And so training is going to become one of those issues for large organizations and small that will be a deterministic or determinator of how well AI is going to work within my organization. You can't just throw these things at people. AI is good if you know which questions to ask it and how to ask them. That's really going to be providing the results that you want. As we move to agentic AI, it gets even worse, because now we're expecting AI to be able to replace Mike or Jack or other Jack or Alan with actual actions. If you aren't able to tell it what actions you want it to take, precisely what you want it to do, then it's going to take actions that aren't going to be very good. And I think you're going to see a real effort by large organizations to start doing a lot more training. You're seeing it, of course, with the issues that you just mentioned, Mike, but I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think you're going to see a lot more money spent there, which is also, by the way, why Coursera and IBM and others are beefing up their AI training capabilities, because people are going to actually have to buy those technologies, those capabilities from them.
Mm-hmm. Alan, what's your take on what's the right balance here? Because there's certainly a certain amount of personal responsibility here, right? I need to be relevant and I need to get my own skills, and it's part of my career. But at the same time, organizations need to invest some level of training. So is there a balance to be struck here, or what's your sense of what's going on?
Well, sure. You need to take some personal initiative, for sure. But the question that I would have for large organizations is, do you let that kind of go out there on its own initiatives? Let people go do their training on their own. Some will do it very quickly. Some will do it over 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, a year, 2 years. Or do you try to impact that training? Most companies, forget about AI for the moment, but most companies have some kind of training, reskilling capability in-house anyway. And so they realize that training people to do their jobs better presents really good ROI. And I think you're going to see that come about with AI as well. I think it's not going to be just about personal training, me going out and trying to figure out how to make this work. I think it's going to be about kickstarting that training within organizations. And maybe it's driven by HR, maybe it's driven by other groups that are going to implement training sessions to try to get the efficiency of people up. That's how you get corporate efficiency to go up. It's on a personal level, not just on the application level.
Mm-hmm. Alan, do you think that this is a national priority issue? Is this something we should be addressing at a country level? Because ultimately it comes down to our ability to compete.
Frankly, gentlemen, I think you're looking at this all wrong. Right. I have a decent amount of experience here, having founded the DevOps Institute, and we got that up to 65,000 people becoming certified in DevOps in about 6-7 years before we sold it to PeopleCert, one of the largest training companies in the world. Right. You got to know something about the education market. Jack, to your point, there's a difference between reskilling and upskilling. What you're talking about is upskilling. In other words, I got a developer and I'm going to make him an AI savvy developer. I upskilled him. That's very different than having a product marketing manager whose job has been eliminated by AI and they got to go become a coder or a car mechanic or something. That's reskilling, not upskilling. And the real crux of what we're going to face in this world over the next year or 2 or 3 years, is it an upskill or a reskill? Is that QA person going to stay a QA person and just harness AI to become an upskilled QA person? Or is he going to throw the towel in and say, QA is the land of AI, we'll rule that. I'm going to go become a developer or a platform engineer or something else. That's number one. Number two, even prior to AI, over the last 10 years, we've seen watershed moment in technical skill education and training. We went first from doing these things in person, right? There was a time, Jack, where if you wanted to go get a cert, you went to a class. There were 20 people in the class. It was usually 2 days of class, 16 hours, 15 hours, and you got a piece of paper that's suitable for framing that said you were certified. Well, 10, 15 years ago, that changed. We went to virtual training, right? Where instead of being in person, you could do it virtual. And then at your own pace, it's pre-recorded and you just take tests at the end of every chapter. And you got to score an 80% or whatever to move to the next chapter. That became dominant. What we're on the verge of seeing here now is AI monitored, managed instruction, AI training, where it's no longer an instructor doing the curriculum. It's going to be AI who's going to train you to use AI. Sounds a little crazy, but that's AI becomes the trainer, right? Is that letting the fox into the henhouse? I don't know, but AI is the trainer, not the person, not the individual company. So I look at this Coursera and Udemy deal, and they're both big traditional trainers who now do a lot of stuff virtually. What the other change was, like PeopleCert, for instance, DevOps Institute. At DevOps Institute, I had 175 partners around the world who delivered that training, both in person and virtually. Now with the web, Coursera, Udemy, they deliver that training directly. They killed that whole channel. A whole business, economics, economy was killed off there in the training channel, because people go direct to these people. But there's a reason why this is an all-stock deal. Training as we know it is dying if it's not already dead. This model of Coursera and Udemy, my AI will give me that training without them. Why the hell would I pay them? Because I'm going to get the cert from them? There was a time where to go get a job as an ops person, you needed an ITIL certification. Right? A lot of jobs said ITIL certification, mandatory. Security, Jack, right? You needed that CISSP certification. Those days are done. Those days are done. AI, you just go to AI and say, hey, make me smart. I want to take a security class. Draw me up a class. And it's going to draw you up a class as good as Udemy or Coursera's people can. They're dead men walking. I wouldn't take that stock and use it for wallpaper in my bathroom.
Now, see, Alan, I thought I was going to be the only one who's going to be contrary and think this is an insane deal.
It's over. It's over.
It's over.
It's over.
It was, look, there's two parts of this. One is, Alan, you're 100% right in that we went from in-person training to online training, and that's about to change again. If you look at what's motivating Udemy and Coursera to sell, is that they had a big spike in online learning during COVID when nobody had to go to work. They didn't go into their office. They went and did a whole bunch of training. The big problem has been all along is who pays for this and how does it happen, right? And the reality is those companies now realize that people aren't going to pay for this because they have alternative means, as you said, AI and the web. And companies will start paying for an AI-enabled course and then quickly realize that none of their employees take it because none of their employees ever do this. And it becomes, it's a people process problem, as we like to talk about, is that a company that goes and says, I'm going to pay $100,000 to Coursera to give all of my employees access to all these courses, will do that, but they won't go the next step and say, I'm going to give all of my employees a month of time that they can go and spend on this instead of their own personal time. They can spend work time to go take their courses. And unless they do that, nobody's ever going to take the courses. And then next year, the company's going to say, we spent all this money on this and we had 3 people take this course and we got nothing out of it because they took this course, upskilled, and left because now they have to.
And LinkedIn really killed their market too, Jack.
Right. And LinkedIn bought Lynda. That was, I don't know, 10 years ago, something. That was a long time ago. And all those courses are available. If you buy LinkedIn Premium, then they're all available.
And they're all you can eat. So let me just add, Mike, let me just add one thing. This is not uniform across the world, right? I learned another lesson I learned at DevOps Institute. So in the US, less companies pay for training, right? In the US, a lot of people, individuals, pay for their own training because they want to be more valuable in the job market, not at their present job, but for their next job. In Europe, the model is that companies do plan for training because in Europe, those employees often stay for their entire career in only one or two companies. And so they are truly uplifting their employees, right? And oftentimes in Europe, you've got to sign that if you're taking the course through the employer, you've got to stay at least 3 years afterwards so they, in essence, get their money back. Then you've got India. India is a whole world unto itself, right? It's a gravity well in the amount of people who are there working in IT. And for whatever reason, the folks in India love their certifications. They love taking these courses. They love getting certified. They don't like paying for them. So we had different pricing. We had worldwide pricing and then India pricing. India pricing was 60% less than Europe and North America off the bat. And then trying to get the money was a lot of fun. So, if you have the India market, which I say is a gravity well, and they're saying, should I pay for it or use the AI to make it?
I think there's a couple of things at play here that we didn't mention. One is, I think a lot of people are getting training on YouTube now, and it's free and it's a video and somebody watches that, and that's part of the thing. I'm not sure I agree with the stock not having value, though, because these companies, at least theoretically, should have content that's behind a firewall somewhere that is of value that people will pay to get access to. And it will not necessarily be something that ChatGPT has seen. And if they don't,
Boy,
they
Mike,
should.
what are they going to have that ChatGPT doesn't have?
Well, I'll give you an example with AWS, who's talking about the following thing. They're revamping their certification programs as we speak. And all of that stuff sits behind a firewall.
But there's nothing proprietary about it other than the certification itself. I've been down. AWS offered DevOps training 9 years ago. We had people take the course. It was very AWS specific, but nothing that you couldn't learn from just being on AWS. What you couldn't get was a certificate from AWS unless you paid them. And it's the same thing with the CISSP. You've got plenty of security qualified people. They don't got the sheepskin, as the old commercial used to say.
So the sheepskin, as you describe it, is also changing, though. And what AWS is talking about now is smaller certs for specific skill sets that you can demonstrate, and you're not going to take some 6-month certification program. They're going to give you a micro cert essentially that says, yes, you've proven that you have the ability to provision this, and here's your gold star or whatever you want to call it. And I think that's going to be more of that in the age of AI because
but Mike, only if employers demand it. If employers don't demand it, it's useless. How many of you, raise your hand if you go through LinkedIn and you see your friends post, I just obtained the new certification. I presented at the Linux Foundation event, or I took a Lynda course on OWASP Top 10. BFD. It's a nice LinkedIn post. I'm sorry,
There
Jack,
is one issue, though, Alan, and I think we need to look at this as well. AI training isn't free either. So, Coursera is making money, obviously, by offering you a course. You can go to ChatGPT, but you're not going to get a good course if you're not a subscriber to ChatGPT.
$20 a month's a lot cheaper than that Coursera cost. Of course.
Well, and I will argue that as well, which is that there are plenty of people we know who are experts in these things who will gladly put up a YouTube thing for free and take the YouTube ad money, whatever money they get, because that's the way the information wants to be free. I mean, this goes back to the early days of the internet. Information wants to be free, and it is. And how many of you subscribe to 20 different online news sites? We don't, right? Because if you go and you look at it and there's a New York Times article on something and you're not a New York Times subscriber, you say, okay, let me Google that and see what other news article I can find that has the same info for free. And that's the way the world works. And unless, I agree with Alan, unless somebody demands a cert for a job, and we still see this a huge amount in the security environment. But I consult with the SANS Institute, and this is an issue for organizations that's existence is to certify people. It's how do you convince an employer to allocate the time and money and for the cert so that they can demand it and have somebody qualify and need it? And do they really need it to do the job? And that's the big questions everybody's struggling with. Do you need a cert from ChatGPT to be able to use ChatGPT? Well, I can guarantee you that all of our parents here are using it without getting certs, and
Right. And then also, when I talk to DevOps folks, they're of two minds. One is they get the cert, although they hate it because they had to pay for it, and they're only doing it so they can get past some sort of search engine on an HR system somewhere that's looking for keywords. But when you go talk to people who hire folks, they'll tell you every time if it comes down to somebody they know or met at a conference that they know has the skills and can demonstrate it, they'll pick them over no matter how many certs they got.
Hence why we sold. Hey, we're 22 minutes into this one, man. We could talk about it all day, but we can't. We've got other stuff to cover. Let's take a quick break. You're watching Textron Gang.
You've earned it. The spotlight, the responsibility, the weight of teams, companies, and entire industries fall on your shoulders. Lives depend on your decisions, your home life included. At work, you're protected, physically and digitally. Nothing gets through your team without a fight. But in a globally connected world, everyone sees you, including those who mean to cause you and your organization harm. And now home, your sanctuary. Attackers see an opportunity. Your digital front door is wide open. And what compromises your home can breach your boardroom. Because the devil's greatest trick isn't targeting your workplace firewall. It's convincing you that your personal life isn't at risk. Black Cloak. Digital executive protection, defending the new attack surface. Your personal life.
Hey folks, we're back, and we've been talking on this show about AI and power for a while, and now some senators are starting to ask some difficult questions about, are all these AI data centers increasing the actual cost of electricity for the average household? I think we've been kicking this around for a little bit, and I'm not sure that the evidence is solid yet, Jack, but what's your take on what's going on here?
Well, I think, first off, there's politics going on, and then there's the rest of the world and the real world. On the political side, you have this is an issue that Senator Elizabeth Warren can get on her soapbox and say, hey, look, I want to hold inquiries and say, the big bad corporations are doing in the common man. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, and it's still politically related, it's how much power is AI using and how much power do we have and how much power do we need? If you look over, and I did a quick search and research for this segment, in the last nuclear power plant the United States approved was in 2012. So that's 16 years ago, something like that. In that time, since then, we've added about 500 gigawatts of power. Now you look at what AI has committed for, and OpenAI. OpenAI itself wants something like 30 gigawatts in the next year. So that's almost 10% of what we've done in the last 14, 15 years. They want to consume in the next 1 to 3 years. They want to build data centers and do that from a data center perspective.
And by the way, that's just OpenAI, right, Jack?
That's just OpenAI, right? So if you look at, and that was just an easy one because they're very public about what they've committed to do, and that's If you look across all of that, you can figure that that's probably not 4.5 or 5 gigawatts, but probably, 30 gigawatts is what they wanted. It's probably more closer to 100 to 150 or 200 gigawatts across all of the major AI data centers. That's close to a quarter to getting up there in the amount of power we've added over the last few years. At the same time, our government has made it very, very hard to open power plants, and in particular, the one type of power plant that we really need, the cleanest and most efficient power plants that we can do, which is nuclear. So if we're not going to do nuclear and we are going to expand our power requirements, then we have to build coal and natural gas, which are dirty and noisy and et cetera, et cetera. And regulations and getting new power plants built is very costly and time consuming, getting through the government regulation process. So you have more demand chasing after a restrictive supply. Prices are going to have to go up. It is not necessarily the evil power companies that are trying to do in the consumer. It's basic economics of supply chasing demand, demand chasing supply that isn't caught up yet, and the government not allowing us to build quickly enough.
There's another piece to this as well, and that is not in my backyard phenomena.
Yes. And I've talked about that before. When you go outside of Manassas, Virginia, where all the big data centers are outside the nation's capital, and the noise from these things is truly horrendous. Data centers are very, very large. They consume a lot of land, and they produce a lot of noise, both from the fans, the backup generators, and the humming of the electricity lines and the transformers. And they employ very, very few people. So can be, have a very large impact on local communities, particularly in rural areas where they
pay a lot in property tax.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is another piece.
I got to step up on my soapbox here a second.
I'll step down, Alan, so you can step up.
Step up. So, Jack, you're right. There is political theater, and then there's the reality. But every once in a while, political theater matches the reality. At the heart of the political theater here is this basic principle. You want to build AI data centers. You want to power AI data centers. You're going to make a lot of money off of those AI data centers. Why the hell should my electric bill go up? That's real. That's real. Number one. Number two, you know what? I'm all for nuclear power. And I agree we should look at authorizing and investigating. But let's not rush to bring nuclear power on without proper safeguards, without proper inspections, without proper guidelines. Otherwise, let's build it in Chernobyl or next to Love Canal so we can get ready the next generation of irradiated cancer survivors, right? I'm not saying nuclear is not safe. I'm saying you don't cut corners for safety, right? This is out of the movie. What was the movie? Karen, China Syndrome was one, the 3 Mile Out. No, but Silkwood. Wasn't it Silkwood, the movie, the book, true story? We don't want that. And Jack, when we talk about, hey, let's do some clean, efficient energy. Well, why the hell is our government putting the kibosh on wind and solar and renewable clean energy that you talk about our capacity growing? Our capacity is grown from those energy sources, right? So if the political theater is, you've got a country that just, the president went online and said Venezuela stole our oil, right? When this isn't about oil. Yes, next-gen nuclear, maybe. Yes to solar. Yes to wind. Trump Media themselves yesterday announced that they're merging with a company to go build fusion energy plants. 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It's always 5 to 10 years from now. That's the real issue here. Elizabeth Warren isn't wrong here. Let OpenAI pay for their energy. Let Meta and Google and Microsoft and Amazon pay for the energy that they want to power these AI plants for. I'm already paying enough for my electric. It's wrong.
And I'll actually give you a real world example. Here in Massachusetts, every month I get a bill from the electric company, it's also true on gas, where they have added, the state has mandated an additional cost for upgrading the infrastructure. Now, who's going to benefit from that infrastructure upgrade? It's probably not going to be me. The lines in my street are 50 years old and they're not getting updated anytime soon. But the data center that they want to build, down the street, or, OpenAI putting in something nearby, those are the folks that are going to benefit from that. It's the new construction.
Absolutely. So on my bill, so we have FPL, Florida Power and Light. Here's an interesting thing. On my bill every month, they show me how much of my energy consumption was done using solar. Right? And it goes up a little bit every month. This is a fundamental issue we're going to have to face as a nation here, and I'd make it an election time issue. Why should we pay for the tech bros data centers?
I don't understand why, if they want their data center to be approved, they just don't show up and tell everybody in the town that they're going to pay their electric bill as part of the deal for building the data.
Because they're too busy telling them all the jobs it's going to create.
Well, that and they're not making any money to begin with. Where's the profitability for these guys?
Arvind Krishna, the CEO of IBM, I wrote about this about 2-3 weeks ago. He had it dead on. Guys, Jack, to your point, about $8 trillion is going to need to be spent to build and power these data centers worldwide. That's a worldwide number. And when you look at the economics of what the return will be on that $8 trillion, understanding that every 5 years you need to regen those data centers, right? Upgrade the infrastructure. The emperor has no clothes here, guys. Unless something fundamentally changes, this is a losing proposition.
Yeah, they need $800 billion a year just to pay the debt.
Can I tell you something that happened here in Westchester last week? So there was a meeting about the powering down of the Indian Point reactor, and one of the people there stood up and said, well, we're powering this down, and maybe you guys might want to use this land for data centers. Well, the whole room flipped out.
Oh, I'm sure. But Mike, this is a perfect example. I lived in New York. I remember when Indian Point came online and everything. We knew that it was end of lifing. Why didn't we build a replacement for Indian Point that went through the regulatory process and is ready to come online? Instead of saying, oh my God, we got to do something right now, cut all the regulations, flip the switch. It's just, it's piss poor planning.
Well, because the answer is because people like you, Alan, who say, I don't want nuclear because it's scary.
No,
and the reality
Jack,
is,
hear me out. I didn't say I don't want nuclear because
if you're going to invoke Silkwood and Meryl Streep and all of this stuff,
I think next-gen nuclear is very different than what's in Indian Point right now or what was in 3 Mile Island.
Right.
All I'm saying is don't cut corners on regulatory practice.
And I don't think anybody is arguing for that. I just think
I'm not. Absolutely are arguing.
No,
that's just what the Senate. There are bills in the Senate, and the administration is pushing to cut, and they're preventing states from putting in regulations on this. They want to cut, drill, baby, drill, turn it on right now.
And the answer is because, look, my former home was in the wonderful state of California, where nothing can ever be built because of the regulations.
They still have the fourth or fifth biggest economy in the world. They're doing pretty good compared to the red states.
Because they're buying their power from their importing power rather than generating it themselves. And at some point, the power's got to come from somewhere to drive Silicon Valley data centers.
Jack, you're saying, okay, let me show you the extreme case. I'm telling you, bring next-gen nuclear power online. Make sure it's done right. Don't cut corners.
there is another piece to this, guy. So let me kind of throw something in here. One of the problems with nuclear is it generally takes 5 to 10 years to get a plant built and up and running. For 5 to 10 years, the power companies are spending billions of dollars to get that place up and running with no revenue to show for it. And so from a financial perspective, if it really takes, and forget about regulations are not, and Alan, I agree with you, it has to be safe and all of that stuff. But if it takes 5 to 10 years to build a new plant, get it up and running, and generate no revenue, but still have debt that I got to pay down, who's going to pay for that?
We do, but we always have. We always have. And that's okay.
No, that's the pushback, though. People don't want to pay that. That shows up in your bill.
The alternative is to pay for dirty energy like gas or coal or solar.
So
solar
here in
is not
Florida,
clean.
Jack, FPL has invested a ton in these solar farms or whatever you want to call them. Guys, we need, the shimmy says that I did on Friday is that 2025 was the first year of the 21st century. We're done. For the first 25 years of this century, we've lived off of and worked in stuff that was done in the 20th century. We need energy for the 21st century. Obviously, if we want to do this AI stuff, if we want to live without glowing at night, if we want to, realize the promise of what's before us, we need a plan for the 21st century. And it's not drill, baby, drill. That's the issue. We got to do it right.
I don't suppose we could spend any time making the existing grid system more efficient than it is, because I don't think
that has to be done too. And better batteries and all of these things. We need a 21st century energy plan, not John Rockefeller's plan.
And people overlook the fact that the current energy grid in this country loses about 20 to 25% of the electricity just in transmission.
I think it's more, Jack. It's highly inefficient.
Be more. Sure. But that's a significant chunk.
I don't want to get emotionally involved here. Let's take a break and come back to our next thing.
Discover TechStrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with TechStrong Group.
Hey folks, we're back and we're talking about the AI bubble again. Apparently Oracle has had a setback on funding for a $10 billion data center deal, and it's raising questions. And at the same time, I also happen to notice that Morgan Stanley is funding some sort of data center initiative using junk bonds. So I guess, Alan, are we running out of money here, or are people saying that, we don't want to fund these because maybe we're over provisioned? What's your take on what's happening here?
You know what this is, Mike? That's the world's smallest violin playing Hearts and Flowers for Larry Ellison. Look, the man increased his net worth by about 40% when a bunch of these Oracle Cloud AI deals were announced with NVIDIA and OpenAI and Blue Owl and et cetera. And now, what goes up must come down. No one defies gravity in spite of the song in the movies. You can't defy gravity. I wrote about this a couple weeks ago as well. The real issue is, and it goes back to our last segment, no, not the nuclear stuff, but the stuff about what Arvind Krishna wrote about. The economics of these things, of these data center of these AI factories, they're spacious, if not downright fraudulent. I mean, the number, not fraudulent in terms of a crime, but the numbers just don't add up from an arithmetic point of view. On given current the economics of this currently, it just, whether you're talking about tokens and what tokens are really going to cost, whether you're talking about where the energy comes from, whether you're talking about what you can charge for this stuff, I think we got a little ahead of our skis. And now, gravity set in.
All right. Jack Gold, if I take away all the investments that are being made in AI, what is your sense of what's the real state of the economy and what are people kind of actually spending money on? Because from what I could see, at least the numbers suggest that AI accounts for half of the GDP growth. So maybe we're not growing as much as we should be because, well, everybody else is not in the AI business.
If we had real numbers, we'd know, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Alan. If you look at it, I mean, it's all circle financing, right? NVIDIA invests in my cloud company for $1 billion, but makes me buy $1 billion of your chips. Essentially, you're giving me your chips for free for my company. So it's really, really, really hard to tell until we get to a point where the investment is more transparent and less circular. Then we'll really know. By the way, there is another issue around all of this that people tend to gloss over. If we're spending all this investment, all this money, and there's a lot of money out there, let's be clear. But if we're spending all this money on AI, what future technologies are we not spending on? What's it taking away from? And there's always the risk that if we're spending so much, it's like the web craziness, right? Of 20, 25 years ago. Everyone is spending all kinds of money. AOL and Time Warner, great example, right? Where's AOL today? But there are new technologies that are potentially coming online that we're not investing in healthcare, like the last segment in nuclear power that we can actually deploy quickly and cheaply. There's a lot of stuff that's not happening. So it's not clear how all of this money that's being spent is going to help us. And by the way, Alan, you mentioned earlier that these data centers have to be upgraded every 5 years. It's more like 2 years. If you're an AI data center, you need the latest NVIDIA chips or you're not a data center anymore. And they're only good for a year or two. In fact, I saw a statistic that said about 30% of them are failing per year because they're driven so hard.
Yeah.
That's a lot of expense.
Let me piggyback on what you were talking about there, though, Jack. Here's the situation. The fact of the matter is this first phase of AI expansion that we've lived through, let's say over this last 2-3 years, was primarily funded by the cash reserves of the Mag 7. Well, minus Apple. I don't think they've spent a dime on AI to speak of. I'm being facetious, but it was primarily spent by the cash reserves of the Mag 7. And you could chalk this up to fools and their money. Right? It's their money. They can do what they want with it. But what we're seeing now is a lot of this AI spend or planned spend is coming from VC money, funds money, debt financing, more traditional ways of capital expenditure here, rather than just, because the fact is, coming out of COVID, the Mag 7 were sitting on hordes of cash, collectively in the trillions of dollars. But as that pile goes down and we start financing this stuff with Wall Street money, pension fund money and stuff. Do they have pensions? There's still pension funds, public employees, and Middle East money. But when when things don't work out like this deal here and the stuff hits the fan, well, then it becomes a little bit more painful, doesn't it? Right? Because you're not just saying, Google will make it back. Right.
Alan, I think there's another part that's very important to layer on top of that, which is financially, all of the Mag 7, or at least let's look at it this way: the big three, the cloud providers, Google, Amazon, Microsoft all have cash flow engines that are just throwing off cash left and right. That's something that Google does not have at the same scale. So not Google, Oracle does not. Sorry, Oracle.
Well,
Oracle does
look,
not
I
have
wouldn't
the same
take up any
scale.
collections, or you know what
But
they
but not they don't have the ability to replenish the coffers in the same way that Google has, that Google, Microsoft, and Amazon have. Now I bring that up, and I got tongue tied over Google because Google's going to be the next one hit by this, because the entire search engine business is changing completely. And I think we're going to see an interesting impact on Google's cash flow in the next 1 to 2 years as people are massively changing from going to Google for searches to going to AI for searches. And what is that going to do for Google's ability to get Wall Street money to finance this stuff?
Well, what they're doing, who's Google's competition? OpenAI, Perplexity, Anthropic. Let's call it generative search. And Google is betting that they're going to become a generative search company. But Jack, it's funny. I did a Shimmy Says last Thursday on should we break up big tech. Now, I will tell you, historically, I'm not a big breaker upper. I don't believe in that. The only one I've seen in my lifetime of size was the AT&T breakup. And, it worked out okay. But I watched a debate over at Johns Hopkins University. I forget the Stavros Nikalos, Argo, whatever. You could check out my article on TechStrong IT. And this wasn't your presidential debate where you have one guy who can't put two words together and another one that lies all the time. It was smart people arguing both sides of this. Take Google, for instance. If you took the Google search business without the AI business, it's not long term. I'm not putting a lot of money into it, but if you give it AI, it will compete with the best of them. But does it need YouTube? Because YouTube's the second biggest search engine, right? If you spun YouTube out of Google, you spun Gmail out of Google. You spun some of and then Google Cloud out of the search business. And the same thing, if you spun AWS out of the Amazon retail business, if you spun Instagram and WhatsApp out of Facebook, those are going to be all viable companies. You're going to have a lot more competition. And maybe we'd all be better off.
Hey, I don't want to.
Seeing that. I mean, Oracle's going to now have TikTok. So there's going to be a lot of money to be made there as well.
I know everybody's passionate about this, but I think I'm just going to have the last word here because we're running out of time.
Ahead.
So, hey, AI brother, can you spare a dime?
Or megawatt.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Megawatt, there you go.
Guys, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on today. Thank you for watching. I hope you get as jazzed and juiced about these things as we do. Listen, it's Monday. Christmas is coming this week. We have one more show tomorrow. It's going to be a special event where we're going to have an extra large gang panel with a lot of our favorite gang folks. But it's going to be a different panel for each segment. One segment will be on AI, one will be on IT, and one will be on cyber. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for TechStrong IT. Do go check out those Shimmy Says episodes I spoke about. They're pretty cool. Read it. Mike and his team do an amazing job. We publish a ton of stuff on our TechStrong sites as well as on TechStrong TV. If you want to stay in the know, that's your way to do it. Don't have to go pay for some bogus education. Until tomorrow, though, this is Alan Schimmel for TechStrong Gang. Thanks for watching.